So are you looking to upgrade on a magic weapon, but you're not exactly sure what you should be looking for? Well, you're in luck, because behind today's secret door, top 10 magic weapons in D&D. So behind today's secret door, the top 10 magic weapons in D&D. This is Secret Door, a channel devoted to in-depth discussion about Dungeons & Dragons, and my name is Matt Morich. All right, I have started a Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the channel, your help would be greatly appreciated and much needed. And many thanks to Marcelo and Doug for your support. The link will be in the pinned comment and in the description. So first off, things like legendary weapons or artifact weapons are not on the list. These are only going to be magic weapons that are going to be found in the DMG. Strangely, I didn't see any magic weapons in Tasha's. I don't use D&D Beyond, so if there was one in there and I missed it, my apologies. Also excluded from the list are going to be things that weapons that require a specific race to use them, or are a very specific weapon, like a dagger or a scimitar, for example. There is one exception to that on the list, and you'll see why. Another weapon that won't show up on this list is the Oath Bow. It is the only bow that doesn't have just a simple plus that's in the game. So if you're somebody that uses a magic bow, the choice is pretty simple here. The idea for the list here is not just what's the best. I'm obviously considering damage here as the primary consideration. Whatever other power, effect, or benefit the weapon may provide is also considered, and attunement is also considered, and rarity type is considered. But this is also really a list for people, characters, players, when they get in that pickle of, I've got a magic weapon, but I have the option of getting this magic weapon. Should I trade this one out to get that one? I was kind of surprised when I did this list. When I broke the damage down, I was kind of surprised. And I think you'll be surprised as well. So other than considerations from what is included or excluded from the list, are things like I'm going to assume 2 attacks with a weapon, because certain weapons flourish with more attacks than a single attack. And I'm also assuming a baseline of a potential damage pool of 30 points. And I'll note that when it's important, I don't mean that you would be doing 30 points of damage a round. I mean that your potential average damage would be 30. And just to clarify as to why I picked that number, at 5th level, average damage is about 17 points of damage, which means that the average damage pool is in the high 20s or 30. If you were doing 30 points, if you had a potential damage pool of 30 and you didn't have any pluses to hit, you'd be doing 18 points, not counting criticals, in damage per round, which is about average. So at number 10, we have the +1 weapon. The most boring, generic weapon possible in D&D, but also the most classic weapon in D&D. You're going to get an extra 2.8 in damage per round from a +1 weapon. It'll go up an extra 0.5 point for every 10 points in potential damage that you have. So if you had a 40-point pool, you would be doing 3.3. If you had a 50-point pool, it would be doing 3.8. Is it boring? Sure. Of course it is. It was almost just going to be my baseline, but I felt that it was more important that it be here, and it actually mathematically deserves to be here at number 10. At number 9, we have the Sword of Wounding. Now, a Sword of Wounding, you're going to get an extra D4 in damage that you're going to inflict on the target that they will take round after round. They get a saving throw, or an ally could help them. Every time... Not every time you hit, but once per turn, if you hit, you can inflict another one on them. So theoretically, in a 4-round combat, you could get 10 rolls of 10 extra D4 rolls from a Sword of Wounding. But that's assuming they don't save, or an ally doesn't help them, or they just simply don't die. and then those extra D4s are going to be lost, and you're going to have to start over on a fresh target. So I think it's safer to think of the Sword of Wounding as giving an extra D4 in damage, which would be 2.5 in damage, which isn't awful, but it's less than the +1 weapon. But the difference is that it has an upside that is not impossible to obtain. Obviously, I think that the extra 10 rolls of D4s is going to be pretty hard to get off. But I think that, could you get 6? Could you get 7? Sure. But it's safer to assume that you'll get 4, and every now and again you'll get a couple more. It does require attunement, so you could very easily argue that it should be at number 10 and the +1 sword should be at number 9. You might be right if that's how you feel, but this is where I have it. At number 8, we have the Warning Weapon. Now, the Warning Weapon is an uncommon weapon, that's fantastic. It does require attunement, and it doesn't do anything for you in terms of damage. But what it does do is awesome. While you have it on your person, you get advantage on initiative rolls and cannot be surprised, and the surprise will also affect other party members. So the point here is that this is not the weapon that you pick to use if you're a martial character. This is just a weapon you have on your person, and you get advantage to your initiative rolls, which is nice. But if you're a caster and you have this weapon, depending on what kind of caster you are, this is amazing. But in any case, is it worth an attunement slot for it? Yeah. It just depends on what's competing with it, right? But getting advantage on your initiative rolls is going to be hard to edge that out with a lot of magical items. So even though this doesn't do anything for you in damage, it's an amazing magic weapon, and that's why it's at number 8. So number 7 is the one of the big cheats. Number 6 is also kind of a cheat. Number 7, I am going to put in 3 entries here in number 7, and they're all maces. Mace of Disruption, Mace of Terror, Mace of Smiting. They're not equal, but they're all maces that are good. Some of them are very good. The Mace of Smiting is the weakest of the 3, but it also doesn't require attunement, so that's very nice. The reason why I'm putting maces on this list is that the mace is a simple weapon, and so it's going to be available to an enormous range of characters. So characters that are looking for a good magic weapon, and if this were to come up, it's something you don't want to just turn your nose up at. Is it an end-all be-all weapon? No, but it's a very solid weapon, and that's why it's on the list. At number 6, we also have this is the last where I'm putting a group in. This is just 2. It's the Dragon Slayer and the Giant Slayer swords. Now, these weapons, these give you +1 to hit and damage, which is good. So they're going to get that 2.8 that you're getting from the +1 weapon. But if it's a Dragon Slayer sword and you're fighting a dragon or a dragon turtle or a wyvern, you're going to get that extra damage, 3d6. And if you're using the Giant Slayer and you're fighting a giant, or you're fighting a troll or an Etten, and those are much more common, particularly trolls, then you're getting extra damage. I believe is 2d6, and on a hit they have to make a save, albeit a Constitution save, or fall prone. So there are +1 weapons that have a nice and fun bonus. Now, if I were trying to acquire a magic weapon, and by meaning purchasing one, I don't know that it would be worth the rarity type here. But if you were to simply find one adventuring, yeah, that's a nice, fun bonus to have. Absolutely. So that's why they're here on the list. And number 5 on the list is Cold Brand. Now, Cold Brand is going to give you an extra d6 per attack, and it's going to give you fire resistance. That's very nice. It also requires attunement, and it's a very rare weapon. Your expected extra damage per round is 4.54, which is good. That's solid. If I were trying to acquire a magic weapon, this would be a tough one to pay that very rare kind of price for. So consider it very carefully. It just really depends on the campaign and how often you're able to acquire magic weapons. But if you were to simply just find one, Cold Brand is super, super solid. And at number 4 on the list is the +2 weapon. The +2 weapon is number 4 on a list of the top 10 magic weapons in D&D. This should tell you how strangely ineffective magic weapons are on this list. So the fact that a +2 weapon could do this well on the list really surprised me, but it's really just about the math. You're getting an extra 5.8 in damage per round from a +2 weapon. That simply is just doing better than the others. And of course, that's going to go up. So with a +2 weapon, every 10 points of your damage pool, potential damage pool over 30, is going to give you an extra +1 in damage. So at number 4 is the +2 weapon. And at number 3, we have the Dancing Sword. What the Dancing Sword really offers is it fills a niche that a lot of characters have, which is that their bonus action isn't being consumed regularly. So this is just putting extra damage out with your bonus action, which is great. And it's interesting because if you are a martial character and you don't have a bonus action reliably being used, this is not your main weapon. You still want your main magic weapon to be something you're swinging with. But if you should end up getting a Dancing Sword on top of that, then it's just going to sit on top of your damage pool, and that's going to be great. Now, if it's a Dancing Greatsword and it's giving you an extra attack every round, it's going to be giving you about 6.95 in expected damage per round. And obviously, if it's a smaller sword, it'll go down some. But that's a substantial increase in damage, obviously much better than +2. And for that reason, the Dancing Sword is number 3. And at number 2 on the list is the Flame Tongue. This is a personal favorite of mine, and I was shocked that it came in at number 2 with this kind of criteria that I put out for a list like this. The Flame Tongue obviously gives you an extra 2d6 in damage per round from fire. And that comes out to, with 2 attacks a round, about 9.1 in damage per round. It requires attunement. It is definitely worth its rarity type. If you can ever get your hands on a Flame Tongue, you do it. It's a great weapon. I was shocked that it would come in at number 2. And at number 1 is the +3 weapon. This was not something I am trying to pull some kind of fast one. It's simply the +3 weapon is simply the best in this criteria. It's only giving you an extra 9 points in damage, which is 1/10 less than the Flame Tongue is giving you, but it doesn't require attunement, and it will go up by 1.5 points for every 10 points of your potential damage pool. So if you have a 40-point pool, now you're doing 10.5. If you have a 50-point pool, which a lot of characters can get to, then you are now talking about 12 extra damage in a round. And that's obviously leaving the Flame Tongue behind. Now, going back to Flame Tongue real quick, like I mentioned with Cold Brand, if you have multiple attacks, or if you have more than 2 attacks available to you as a character, obviously Flame Tongue is going to be great. But assuming it's just 2 attacks, which is pretty much the norm, then you are looking at the +3 weapon as being number 1, given this criteria. It should be, I should point out, things like the Sword of Sharpness, which you would think would at least make this list, but when you break down the numbers, it doesn't even compete with a +1 sword. The chance, because everything is predicated on that rolling a 20. Okay, well that's all I've got. If you enjoyed the video, please like, please share, please subscribe. And if you're stuck and you don't know where to go, you can always search for a secret door. Until next time, I cast bless on all of you.